Alright, hey everyone, welcome to PREREC. I'm your host Wolfblade, and on today's episode, we're going to do a little bit more cooking, and I'm going to show you guys how to make a shepherd's pie. Okay, this is, besides the fried rice, which was in our last episode, shepherd's pie is probably one of my favorite things to cook. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of an adventure because there's a lot of steps to this, but I'm going to try to do this in a manageable, affordable, pretty much easy to do kind of way. Now, first off, a little bit of history is shepherd's pie can be pretty much anything that you want it to be. Okay, so that means there's really no way you can screw this one up. Okay, so just to start off here, you're going to need a frying pan, which you can see mine with the stainless steel thing coming off. Like I said, it's my favorite one, hence why it's so worn. And a couple other pots and pans, I'll introduce them on the way. Okay, so the first step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and preheat our oven, because we're going to have to use the oven today. And I'm going to go ahead and move this rack down just a smidge. Like that, okay? So I'm putting on the second rung, because normally I cook with it all the way up, but we're putting on the second rung. I'm going to preheat my oven to about 375. I think this should be good, okay? Because we're going to have to bake the pie after we're done actually making it, okay? So, our first step, besides, we preheat the oven, and then we're going to go ahead, I'm going to use about 2 pounds of hamburger, or whatever kind of ground beef that you want to use. Go with the hamburger, ground beef, whatever your favorite fancy is. Let me pick up some seasonings here. I usually like to use any kind of, basically kind of like seasoned salt, in general, like, what do you got? Like Laurie's is a brand, Montreal steak seasonings, any kind of meat tenderizer, stuff like that. Alright. I also like to use a little bit of garlic powder, some onion powder, and I also like to use, depending on how you pronounce it, I call it Worcestershire sauce. That debate is arguable, though, as I have found out from a good friend of mine. But it looks like I don't have any at the moment. So, okay. It's definitely doable without. It's just for seasoning the meat, okay? So we're going to go ahead, and I was defrosting this here, so we're going to go ahead and put this into the pan. Always wash your hands before you do this. Wash my hands prior to starting the video here. Go ahead and pull this apart. You see it's a little brown from the defroster. It's okay. Still a little frozen, actually. But we're going to try to pull this apart as best as we possibly can. Get it in pieces. And then, should season it first. Go ahead and wash my hands here. I have my own personal thing, I have a bad time when both of my hands get messy. It's kind of a weird thing, I know. I'm good, like, if I'm working with one hand, for whatever reason, too. So, you'll notice me washing my hands a lot. So we're going to go ahead, season our meat here. Put a little bit of the Laurie's steak seasoning, or ground beef seasoning, or whatever you want to call it. The tenderizer. Add some garlic. That's actually the onion powder. Then we're going to add the garlic. And it's just, whoa, that's a little bit much. Okay, we won't put too much in there. And then just mix it in. Get it all nice and mixed in there. And seasoning your meat is probably one of the biggest steps when it comes to cooking. Okay? Okay, that's still frozen. But it's okay if it's a little frozen. It'll defrost when it cooks. Okay. And then also the quality of the meat that you use too. Unfortunately, if you're on a budget or something, you're going to use like lower quality hamburger. So it's going to have a, more fat or more grease and stuff in it. So it's always better, like, if you want to use lean, but it's far, far, far more expensive. And especially if you're using 2 pounds of the stuff, which we're going to need a lot of the beef, because that's what's going to make the crust of the pie, technically. Technically speaking, if you're talking about a pie, that's what the crust is going to be made up of. So let me go ahead and get my spoon. I got my favorite kind of spoon for cooking. I used it in the last video. I don't know why, I just particularly like this spoon here. Doesn't matter. Just gotta be able to stir it up and mix it up and stuff. Alright. That looks pretty good. So, and then the next step for browning the burger. A lot of people think I'm weird for this. It's just how I was taught. Add a little bit of water to it. You want to simmer the burger. You want to simmer the meat as it cooks and browns. Okay. You don't want to like fry it, kind of like how we did with the rice and stuff. So just add a little bit. You don't have to like over flood it. You don't need to boil it. But just enough to get it simmering. Okay. So let's go ahead and turn that bad boy on. And we'll go ahead and let that cook. Because we gotta wait till the burger starts to cook. Another step that I like to do first, even before doing the burger, is I like a lot of onion in my foods. But the people, the meal I'm making right now, for my family and stuff, they don't like onion that much. So I'm not going to cook with onion this time. But if we were using an onion, I would recommend chopping up one onion and like into bits and pieces, and then cooking that. Add a little bit of butter, and then let the butter cook the onion pieces first, and then when your onion gets done cooking, then add the burger to it. Next, a big part of the filling, if you want to call it filling, is the vegetables, okay? So this meal has vegetables, and as you can see here, I have a whole bowl of mixed vegetables. Most of them you can find, in your frozen foods department. If you want fresh, you could go fresh. Fresh is always the best. Always the best. I just got a mixed thing of frozen vegetables, so, that shows right there that it can be done very affordably. So we're going to go ahead and thaw these vegetables out. I got some carrots, some peas, some green beans, and a little bit of broccoli. I'm going to go ahead and some peas and corn in there too. Get that thawing. There's one more. I thought there was one more. Okay, we're going to chop that up too. Okay. Let's go ahead. Since it was lower quality burger, you see a lot of the grease and stuff start coming out of the burger, and there's a lot more liquid in the pan now. If you have leaner meat, leaner hamburger, it doesn't do that. But you want to make sure your burger's brown, all the way cooked through. Having raw food will make you sick, so you don't want that. And I'm going to try to chop the burger up into smallest pieces that I possibly can. Into the smallest pieces that I possibly can. And we're going to be working with this burger throughout the entire episode. So, by natural default, the chunks will get smaller and smaller as we work with them. Okay, I'm going to let this cook just a little bit more. Right after I'm done chopping this up here. When I'm trying to chop these up in little pieces, I get kind of, I don't know, it's obsessive compulsive, I guess. I'm like, no, this is too big. Gotta keep chopping. Okay. Well, I'm going to let this go ahead and finish cooking here. This piece needs to cook a little bit more there, and I want to make sure it's perfectly cooked all the way through. But yeah, like I was saying about gauging your heat, if you cook on medium, you can tell eventually if it's going to be too hot or too not enough heat to cook everything thoroughly. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and drain the water out of our veggies here, because I think I defrosted them enough, and the broccoli is starting to fall apart. Luckily, in the mixture, that's not going to be too awful bad, because we're mixing everything together anyway. And for the most part, it may just add a little bit of visual to it, you know? And, okay, there's a little bit of water in there. And there's a little bit more carrot chunks. I can fix that later on as well. Okay. Yeah, and when you're trying to thaw out broccoli and stuff, you gotta watch specifically, because broccoli is one of those vegetables that will fall apart on you if you use too much water. And like I said, you want to make sure it's cooked thoroughly all the way through. But we're going to be keeping that burger on the heat for a while. So if it's not completely 100% cooked through at this moment, then it will cook. We're going to be still cooking it, so it's going to have a chance to brown through all the way through later on anyway. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's get rid of some of this grease though. I'm going to go ahead and drain this out. So go ahead, turn off the heat just for a split second. We're going to keep working with that here momentarily. Make sure you get some towels or some pot holders or something, because this is going to be really hot, draining out the grease and stuff. And when you're doing it, make sure you are running some hot water. Specifically, as hot as you could possibly get, because when you go to drain the grease out, it's going to, if you use like cold water and stuff, it could potentially plug up your drain, because it gunks up and clogs drains and stuff, and it's just a nightmare. So the more you thin it out, the hotter it gets, the more thin it gets. It'll go down easier. No risk. If you don't even want to risk maybe even doing that, you could put the grease into like a separate jug or something and throw it out that way. Or if you want to save it or whatever you want to do. But, okay, we're going to get a pot holder here. I got a pot holder here. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure my water is steaming hot. Okay, yeah, that's pretty hot. That's pretty good. That way, that way when we go to rinse out the grease out of the burger here, it will, go away nicely. So we're going to go ahead and drain the grease and the water and stuff from the burger. And, we don't want it to gunk up, so we're going to let the hot water run it down, make it go through its course here. Okay, and I have the burger just sitting there on the burner right next to the camera burner. So, like I said, let that run through. And then now, we're going to keep working with this for a little bit. And now's the step where we go ahead and add our vegetables and all our other good stuff, okay? Alright, so this should be good right there. We should be alright. So go ahead. Like I said, the burger's going to provide like the crust of the pie. So we're going to use that, and you'll see how that works here after the next couple steps, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of these vegetables. And you can kind of go a little bit more heavy on the veggies. Yeah, why not? But you do want a nice burger to veggie ratio. You don't want too much burger or too much veggie. It's all about a nice even balance. Okay. And then, so as that's cooking and frying up, I also have, you can find these basically anywhere. You can see on the cutting board cam there. Just regular like gravy, brown gravy mix packs. You could get them for like $1 or maybe like 50 cents a pop. They work really well. I would always go with brown or mushroom gravy or something like that, and that's gonna adding the extra like gravy, making the gravy into the mixture as well. That's how we're going to make it into a crust. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing in the gravy portion. Okay, so you're going to want to add 1 cup of water per every pack that you of gravy that you put in. Okay, put the lid on that. So I said 2 cups of water for 2 packs of gravy, and it's going to be the gravy that is going to make it so we can make this into a crust, as I said prior. Okay, that's getting kind of hot. Go ahead and add the 2 cups of water. Like I said, you should be cooking on medium heat. You can gauge the heat that way a little bit easier, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. Just my stove likes to be a nuisance sometimes. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the gravy mix. And if you know how to make brown gravy from scratch, that works just as well. If you want to do it that way. But it's going to be the gravy that makes it so we can mold what we need to mold into the crust. Into a crust, I should say. And if this doesn't make it thick enough, you can always add cornstarch, or even if you don't have cornstarch, a little bit of flour. Okay, I'm also going to use a can of mushrooms. I like adding mushrooms to this because it's more of a Western, not really a Western thing, I guess. But it's more of a hearty type thing. If you don't like mushrooms, you don't have to cook with them. Again, shepherd's pie can be whatever you want it to be, but I found out that I like using mushrooms in this. The more stuff you can add to it, I found out it brings out a lot. It's like a rainbow of flavor, like a rainbow of different flavors, different tastes. No particular mushrooms is necessary. You can use whole mushrooms if you like whole mushrooms. If you want mushroom pieces work as well. Drain the water out. Add some mushrooms to it while it cooks. Mushrooms tend to cook kind of fast, so that's why I add it a little bit later on. Now I still want this to cook a little bit. Okay, so now that we got this going on, and we may need a little bit more water later on, I'm going to add a little bit of cornstarch to thicken it up a bit, because we don't really want it to be liquidy gravy type stuff. We want it to be more of a, I guess, a thick soupy type meal. And flour works, like I said before. Cornstarch a little bit more because it gets things quicker or thicker for a little bit less, and has a little extra flavoring to it, if you ask my opinion. So go ahead, sprinkle some cornstarch on there. It will get all over you, so just be aware of that. Don't try to make a huge mess, I guess. unless you're going for that. And stir it all up nicely. And this is why you got to gauge your burger and your veggies and stuff too. Make sure you have enough of the gravy stuff to accommodate however much you're cooking with. Yeah, see how it's thickening up now? Because we added the cornstarch and stuff, it's nowhere near as liquidy. It's almost... if you ever cooked with, like, I don't know, Hamburger Helper or anything like that, it thickens up nicely when you add the stuff in, because they got, like, flour or cornstarch inside that, and it thickens up. Kind of reminds me of that. My family eats a lot of Hamburger Helper and stuff like that as well. So it kind of, just makes it a little more soupy. You can kind of, I'm kind of showing you right here, right now. You can kind of mold it into what you kind of need here because it's thicker now. See how that works? And we're going to utilize that when we go to put it in our pan, into our baking pan. And all that. So we're going to go ahead, let that sit for a minute. Let that cook. So while that's cooking and doing its thing, we're going to stir it from time to time. But I do need to do the topping or the filler or whatever you want to call it. And we're going to use potatoes for that. Good old classic mashed potatoes. Okay? So while we're doing that, while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and grab this bag of potatoes here. These are some really, really big russets. Look at the size of that potato. That is a huge potato. If you can find the big ones, that's great. I'm going to utilize maybe 4 of these bad boys, and that is it. You don't want to go crazy. If you want, you can cook a little bit extra mashed potatoes. And then save the rest for later. Use what you need to, but then save the rest for later. If you don't have enough, it might not cook as well. But, take chances, right? So go ahead. What you're going to need for this is your potatoes, obviously. You're going to want to wash your potatoes. You're going to need a potato peeler. And wherever that Perry knife went that I had. Ah, right there. Okay. Okay, so I'm also going to show you how to make mashed potatoes here because we're going to need them for the pie. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cutting board. Here's my cutting board. And we're going to wash these potatoes. Always wash your potatoes because they could have a lot of gunk on them. You don't know where they've been. So always give them a good wash down. And we're going to wash them again after we peel them too, but, you can't be too sanitary when it comes to food. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and peel potatoes here. You can also use, if you're really on a budget or you're really wanting to go quick, a little bit quicker with this, you can always use instant. Instant doesn't taste as good, but it just all depends on... I prefer home style, homemade type stuff, but hey, when you're in a hurry and you need, or you're running out of money and stuff like that, instant works just as fine. Okay, make sure we get the rest of this off here. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Looks pretty good to me. So, go ahead, like I said, just make sure they're washed after... The big one is washing them after they've been peeled. You could get away with peeling them before you wash them. But I like to wash them twice, just to be on the safe side for sanitary reasons. Go ahead, toss out the peels. Because we no longer need these peels. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to chop up these potatoes now. And so what you're going to want is a paring knife. or something that's like kind of like razor sharp. Be very, very careful with this because it is sharp and it will cut you. And you be very, very careful with knives, especially these ones. Like any knife is dangerous, but these little paring knives, they're, like I said, they're razor sharp and they will get you. And when you're dealing with these big potatoes, try to chop them up as best as you can. Because you want them to cook as thoroughly as possible. The smaller the pieces are, the quicker they're going to cook. Okay, so we have our pot of potatoes, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and fill this pot with water, preferably hot water. And get that, basically enough water in that pot to cover the potatoes, because we're going to boil them. You got to boil them to cook them. So turn on the heat with that. And then add a little bit of salt. Salt the water, get that going. You don't want to add too much unless you like things really, really salty. Insert gamer joke here. Just speed run a game for a while, believe me, you'll get salty enough. Okay. So the potatoes are cooking. And we're going to go ahead and put it in our baking pan. Okay? And we're going to get the crust up and going. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out of our frying pan and into our baking pan. And like this mixture, this meal will use a lot of different dishes to get proper results. Or desired results, I should say. So you will be cleaning many dishes as you go. At least for me. There's probably people out there that do know how to do this a little bit better than I do. But, hey, it is what it is. Okay. So I'm going to move this, I'm going to actually move the potatoes over here. And get that up and cooking on that burner. So I can show you guys right here on this burner what I'm doing. Like I said, we want to mold this and just fill out the pieces here. And get every square inch worth of our crust. Make sure it's all smooth. You don't want lumps or anything like that. You want it nice and flat. Okay, so it looks like our potatoes are just about done. To double check that, stick just a regular fork inside of it. And if they're not like hard, and you know they're smushing down pretty good, that means that they are fully cooked. Perfect. Okay, so what comes next? You can see that it kind of got a little messy over on the burner. We'll clean that up here later. So to make mashed potatoes, you are going to need some butter. And I like to use condensed or evaporated milk, like canned milk. But regular milk works just as good, you know, just as good. So go ahead and cut off some butter. I'm going to use maybe about 4 tablespoons, which is half a stick, quarter of a cup, however much you want to, whatever measurement you want to say, that's how much butter. Okay. When we're cooking like major mashed potatoes, like lots and lots of mashed potatoes, Mom will use like a whole stick, but we're gonna use a half a stick because we don't need that many, you know. So we're gonna go ahead. We gotta wash that, and we're gonna go ahead and use the mixer. Okay, we're gonna utilize this mixer, but before we do that, I need the milk. Because we're going to add a little bit of milk here and there as we mix. Okay, same thing with the salt. Actually, we're going to go ahead and get our salt here. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt right here. Just a little. You don't need to go, nuts, because you don't want it overly salty. Add a little bit of milk. And I like to smush down the butter, get it kind of smashed in and mixed in already before I even start mixing. And then start mixing on low to get everything kind of chopped up. And this may make a little bit of a mess. Since it's a little bit chunky, we're going to add some more milk, water it down a little bit, get it nice and fluffy. It mixes better when there's more, when it's fluffier, okay? Try to get everything mixed up the best you can without having it fly out of the pot. Add a little bit more milk if we need to. Then once you get everything kind of mixed up, then you can move up to a little bit of a higher speed. Add a little bit more milk. You don't want to overly do it because you don't want your mashed potatoes runny. But you don't want them chunky either. Again, even balance. Okay, and that's mashed potatoes. So now we're going to utilize these mashed potatoes. And there's going to be a lot of cleanup with this kind of project. So the mashed potatoes we're going to put on top, kind of like as our base. I guess you could call it a base, but it's going to be like our top, like a topping for the pie. So I'm going to go ahead and grab out a rubber spatula here. And I'm starting to lose my natural light from my camera, but that's okay because it doesn't change the fact that this meal is awesome, okay? So we're going to go ahead and take these mashed potatoes. We're going to go ahead and put them on our pie. And hopefully we made enough. Yeah, it looks definitely like enough. Hopefully this will work out nicely. Not too much, not too little. Get all the potatoes out that you possibly can. That's why the rubber spatula is nice, because you can try to get out every last little bit. It gets up in the corners nice and doesn't really leave too much in the pan. In the pot. Pots and pans, all the same stuff. All cooking material. They're actually not all the same. Alright, I think that's about as good as I'm getting that for now. Again, it kind of makes a mess. You gotta clean as you go. Then we're gonna just spread on the mashed potatoes, like so. Again, try to get up in every corner that you possibly can. Get it nice and flattened out. And hopefully we have enough here. That's why it's a little bit better to make more than less, because you don't want the layer of mashed potatoes to be too thin. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. Yeah, you want everything to be kind of proper, perfect ratios and all that stuff compared to each other. But this is looking pretty decent. And then you want to try to, as my ma puts it, like hills and valleys and hills and stuff. So you kind of want to make like little peaks. I don't know, just for visual purposes, I guess. I like to flatten it out though. But I'm trying to do a little bit of valleys and peaks here. But we're looking really good here. We're looking really, really good. Okay, get this little corner here, and we should be good. So the next step here is we bake it. Okay, go ahead and get the rest of this off my spatula here. Try to tap that down a little bit. All right, next we're gonna bake this. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and bake it. So we got our oven preheated to 375. Again, you can kind of gauge your heat depending. I like to use 375 with my oven. If you know how your oven works, you can guess it, so on and so forth. But 375 is what I'm using right now, okay? So we're going to go ahead, pop this bad boy in the oven. If it's, too hot, be sure to use oven mitts. Don't, be dangerous. Don't burn yourself. And we're going to go ahead and let that in the oven for about 30 minutes. And then we're going to double check it and see where we're standing there. So I will see you in 30. All right, guys. Welcome back. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and check our pie. It's actually been 31 minutes. Okay. Okay, and so we're going to go ahead and check our pie. Be careful. Always wear oven mitts. Okay, oven mitts. Very important when dealing with heat and stuff. A good indication to know if your pie is fully cooked or not is if you take just a normal, ordinary toothpick like so. I know you can't really see what I'm doing over here because I don't have an oven cam. But go ahead and poke around in your pie with the toothstick. If it comes out clean, like you can see there, sort of, that means it's fully cooked and you're good to go, okay? So now we're going to move on to our next step, which is only about one final step here that we got to do for our pie. Okay, we got another oven mitt here. We're going to move this over here so you guys can see. Okay, so our pie is fully cooked. So now we're going to go ahead. I have some cheese here. I have shredded mozzarella and shredded cheddar, both of which are very good cheeses. And I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some on top here. Get a good layer of cheese going, okay? So we're going to get some nice mozzarella going. We're going to mix in a little bit of cheddar too. Get a nice layer here of mozzarella though. Because the mozzarella is going to melt around. And it's going to create a nice layer. Okay. Just maybe a little bit more, fill in these holes. A little bit. Okay. And then, since I really like cheese, I'm going to go ahead and add the cheddar as well. Maybe even just... It's also good for a little bit of color. Makes things a little presentable. You don't want to really glop it on there. You just want to spread it around. Get a nice even layer as best as you can. Go ahead and add a little bit right here. Okay, this looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit right there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So we got a nice layer of cheese going. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and turn on the broiler. If your oven has a broiler, go ahead and get that going, okay? And we want to move our oven rack to the very bottom row, as far down as you possibly can get it, okay? Be careful not to burn yourself. Be careful when dealing with this. It's extreme heat. You will hurt yourself if you don't wear your proper equipment and stuff like that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and take this again and put it into the oven. Now that our rack's on the very, very bottom, I turned on the broiler. The broiler gets very, very hot. It's the hottest part of the oven. And it's going to cook the top of the pie. Okay? So we're actually only going to do it just to melt and brown the cheese. Okay? And you only want to put it in for maybe 5 minutes. Just keep a real close eye on it because it will cook super, super fast. And if you don't catch it, it will just, the whole pie, like the whole top of the pie will just get burnt. Like it cooks really, really quick. So we're going to go ahead, let that in for 5 minutes and see what the result is when 5 minutes is up. See you guys then. Alright guys, it's been about 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and check on our pie. We were, putting in the broiler and stuff. So let's go ahead and check that out. Yeah, that's looking awesome. That's looking very good. Let's go ahead and turn this off now. Okay. We're going to go ahead and pull this out. Like this. And... Alright. And look at that. Okay. And that's what the broiler does to the cheese. Since the broiler's on top of the oven, it just melts the cheese nice, gives it a nice brown looking flavor, like it's cooked and everything, which it is cooked, but more of a presentable type thing, but it melts the cheese and makes a layer of cheese too. But there you have it, my friends. That is how you make a shepherd's pie. It's got a little bit of everything in there. Nice hearty meal for whatever kind of occasion. It's a little bit, couple few steps, you know, it's a pretty long step, you know, process to make, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. So I encourage you to go ahead and try it, and let me know of your results if you do. But anyway, guys, I'm going to be done for now. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of PREREC, including all of the cooking PREREC that I'm going to be doing. Like I said, I'm not the best chef in the world, but maybe you'll like some of these wonderful Wolfblade meals. So anyway, guys, I will see you guys in the next video. And as always, this is Wolfblade, signing out.